How's it going, guys? AnxiousCynic back again with another Blender tutorial. So I did a little bit in the meantime from last part to this one. One thing is a suggestion that I got in the comments of last episode, which is this option down here on the bottom. You can see that it says AV sync. By default, it's on no sync, and that's how we had it in the previous part. But in this one, I'm going to have it on AV sync, and I think what that does, that rhymed, is it actually makes the animation kind of play as though it's following along with the frame rate that you have for your animation. So let's just say I'm going to hit play here, and you'll see that Steve's moving, but he's a little bit kind of choppy in his movements rather than 100% slow. If you remember the frames per second thing that we talked about. So that's something you can turn on to kind of help you animate in time. It's still not 100%. It doesn't play exactly how you want it to. It kind of looks like it's dropping frames more or less. But that's something you can do to kind of help you animate more in real time like we want to do. Another thing that I did is I changed the interpolation mode for our keyframes. So what I did is basically hit A and selected all of our keyframes, and I hit the T key. Of course, you can alternatively go, if I can click on my middle mouse wheel and drag this over and go to the key option, go to interpolation mode, and I put our keyframes on linear so that we didn't get that kind of ease in, ease out movement. I'm not really sure, what is the best way to do that, but that's what I did, and I feel like it kind of produced better results. So that's what I'm going to stick with and whatnot. So we've got linear transitions and we've got AV sync turned on. So basically what I did in the meantime is I animated this to play pretty much like this. We're going to have Steve come up and open his door and walk outside. So what I did is I animated him to start walking. He stops, opens the door, and then starts walking outside, as you can see. And if we go out here, let's go ahead and hit the period key on my numpad so I can zoom into him and get that kind of sorted out. And we're just going to drag this back over here and play it. And as you can see, Steve walks up to the door. His arm kind of flings it open and he stops for a moment and he walks through. I don't really know if he's lined up perfectly, but what we want to do today is learn how to interact with objects. Sorry I didn't cover that in the very beginning, but hopefully you knew that from the title of this video. So what we wanted to do is fling the door open, and maybe we'll do a little bit more after that. So as you can see here, if we play the animation a little bit and scrub through, Steve comes up and his arm comes over and swings out and nothing happens with the door. So we have the animation, we have Steve doing what he wants to do, but we need the door to react. So what I'm going to do is select our door here. And I think the door may be in two different parts. Let's see what how this reacts here. Let's hit rotate on the Z. And that's not working the way we want it to. So one of the problems here we have, if we have the door selected, and you can see down here that this little part is where the actual rotation point or whatever, and this is technically called the origin. So that's the origin of our door. So if I click on the door and I want to rotate it, then it's rotating from that point. If you're coming from Minimator, imagine this is the custom rotation point, so to speak. So we want to correct that. We want the rotation point to be over here on the door so that we can animate it properly. All right, so the first thing I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and tab back over into the default view so we have kind of more room to work here. What we want to do is bring the origin over here to these points where our door is so that we can rotate the way we want to. So I'm going to come over here to tools, and you have this area here called set, or this option here called set origin. And you have geometry to origin, which would basically take the door and pull it over to where that point is. We have origin to geometry, which is technically what we want. And then you have origin to 3D cursor, etc. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and try origin to geometry. So we're going to do that for that one and for this one. So as you can see, now we have the doors in two separate parts. What we may want to do actually is parent one to the other if it doesn't come this way. There actually is like another thing that you can do with MC Prep, which is the mesh swap. We have mesh swap, if I can say that. We haven't gotten into that yet. I didn't want to quite jump into that because it does some more complicated things. So now that we have the origin set to the object here on both of these, as you can see, they're two independent objects and we do want them to move together. And so if I hit rotate on the Z now, you'll see that it rotates like so. And we want it to actually be over here. So we want to move the origin point to this position. So what I'm going to do, just to make it easy, there is a more complicated way to do this, which I'll cover, but I'm just going to right click there. And as you can see, that puts the 3D cursor pretty much where we would want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and go to set origin, and I'm going to say origin to 3D cursor. And then if I hit rotate and Z, then the door does like this. And this is pretty much how we want it to go. So I think I'm going to leave it like that. You can be more precise with that, but we do have to go into, say, edit mode and do some stuff. So we're not going to do that for this episode, but that's a pretty basic way that you can get your origin point to move. Another issue we have here, of course, is that the objects are two independent objects, and we kind of want this to be a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do is have, let's see, we want to parent this part to the bottom, let's say. So let's go ahead and we're going to click the top part first, and then we're going to hold the shift key and click the bottom part. And as you can see, this turned orange, showing us that this is now selected together. So I can now hit Control P, and that brings up the set parent to, and we can have these options here. We would obviously do object, but I think you can also come over here to this relations tab and set parent. And if you click that, it should bring up the same thing, and we're going to click object. So now if we rotate this one, the whole door should move, and we're good to go. So that's what we're going to do for that little setup there. And now we're going to go back into our animation tab or view, and we want to go to where Steve opens the door. So basically, if you can see this here, he brings his hand up and starts to swing it. So right about there, we're going to use our arrow keys, left and right on the keyboard. So right about there, I think, is where he would begin to push. So I'm going to have the door set. I'm going to set a keyframe here. And it's just going to be for rotation. So I'm going to click rotation. And now you can see here that we have the door show up on our dope sheet. And we're just going to go to where Steve brings it all the way open. So he kind of flings it in a way, so we may want to do a little bit extra work there. So right about there, I'm going to go ahead and hit R to rotate and Z and bring the door out like so. We're going to see what that looks like in a moment. And since we still have our automatic keyframing on, when we move that, it should have set a keyframe for us, and it did. So let's just get a quick look at what that looks like. All right, that's not too terrible. He obviously clips through the door and whatnot, but we're not going to worry about little details like that for now. But we do want the door to kind of move a little bit better. This is a little bit kind of beyond the scope of our tutorial here, but we're just going to kind of go with it for the moment. And you may notice up here when I hit the up and down arrow keys on my keyboard, it's jumping in between keyframes. So up goes to the next keyframe, down goes to the previous keyframe. So that's a little way that you can kind of navigate your keyframes a little quicker without having to just scroll through all the different frames there. So now that we got the door opening here, we kind of want to give it a little bit more oomph as far as animation is concerned. So let's have it kind of go, let's go like say another 2-3 frames maybe. We're going to hit rotate Z, and I'm going to bring it over, just say negative, maybe about -2. It's just going to go a little bit further over, and then we're going to go over a few more frames. Let's just say a couple. So on this one, we're going to go 1 and 2, and then we're going to rotate Z, and we're going to just bring it back, say about just 1, and let's see what that looks like for us. So as you can see there, it's kind of a, not a very exaggerated effect, but the door kind of catches and swings back. Maybe we'll go a little bit more exaggerated on this. Let's go rotate Z and 2, so it'll fling back a little bit further. And we may actually want to have that kind of come out a little bit further, so it kind of happens a little too fast is what I mean. So I'm going to grab that keyframe, I'm going to hit G to drag it, and I'm just going to bring it over a little bit and see if that helps it. Doesn't look too terrible. We'll go with that for now. All right, so Steve comes out, and he's got the door open, and he's just going to kind of plop on through there. And yeah, that's pretty good. He actually interacted with the door and whatnot. So we want him to kind of come outside and do something maybe. So let's go ahead and see if we can get our view just right here. I want to go ahead and go back into default. We don't have to do this, but I'm just going to do it for the sake of the tutorial. So what I want to do is bring in a couple of items that we have from the Minecraft Cycles block pack, if you remember, that we got in part 1. So I'm going to go over here to File. I'm going to go to Append. And as you can see, I've navigated to the Cycles Minecraft rig, and we're going to go to the Blocks rig, and then we're going to go to Object, and we're going to look for, what should we do? Should we do stone maybe? Let's see if we can do stone. I'm going to click in on my mouse wheel and just drag over until we get to where we want to go, and we want to get stone. Let's try that. So we're going to hit Append from library. And as you can see, it doesn't seem like anything happened, but that's because it spawned there. So we're just going to hit G and Z and drag it up so that we can see what we're doing here. And I'm going to go to top view and drag it over like so. All right. And then we're going to hit the period key on our numpad so that we can zoom in on that. And what we want to do is line this up. There are certain ways that you can make this happen a little bit more easily, but for me, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it and try to get this to go where we want it to go. So I'm just going to drag it over here. And now we want to bring in one more thing, so I'm going to go to Append again. Now I want to go back and go to the item rig, the Minecraft item rig, and go to Object. And let's say we want to have Steve get maybe a hoe? Let's have him get a golden hoe because he's super gardener. So I'm going to go ahead and append. And as you can see, this spawned under the world again. And we're just going to go ahead and bring it up just like we did the other one. Go ahead and bring it over. Grab Z. Since I'm kind of finagling this into place, it's really wonky, but we're just trying to do things a little bit quickly here and whatnot. And let's see. This looks pretty good to me. We're going to rotate on the Z. And let's turn here, rotate on the X, and we're just going to have it be kind of the, what is it, Excalibur's sword kind of a thing, where it's just wedged in the rock, and Steve is the only one who can possibly save this item from its wretched grave. So what we want Steve to do is actually come over and pick up the hoe and hold it in his hand. There's a few ways to do this. If you watch Arbiter 617, is that his name? I can't remember the number code. Anyway, if you watch his video, there is an add-on you can get that allows you to dynamically parent objects, which is something a lot of people who have gotten into Minimator really wanted to be able to do. But I don't have the add-on currently installed, and I kind of want to show the traditional method for doing this, at least to my knowledge. Now, I'm sure besides the add-on, there's probably other ways to do this in Blender, but we're going to kind of go with the way we typically do this in Minimator as well. And what that's going to be is we're going to duplicate. So I'm going to have this selected, and I believe you can go to the Tools tab here, and you have duplicate, or you can hit the Shift and D key, and that will duplicate. If I undo that, and then I go over here and hit duplicate, then I will do that, and it does the same thing. So we're going to do like that, and all is right in the world. So what we want to do is have this hoe parent to Steve, and technically we need it parented to the armature, I believe. I'm not 100% sure if this will work perfectly with the custom bone, so we're going to see how this goes. But I'm going to have this selected first, because basically what you want is you select the item that you want to parent, and then you select the item that you want to parent it to. So we're going to have our golden hoe selected, and I'm going to just go ahead and shift click and select the armature. And as you can see, like when I selected it, it put us back into pose mode. I think we need to be into object mode at this point in time. So now we have both of them selected and we're in object mode again. So I'm going to go to relations, and I'm going to go to set parent. And what we want to do is maybe have it set to bone. So I'm going to click that. And as you can see, we have this little dotted line now, if you can see that right there. So let's see if that gave us the effect that we wanted. All right, guys, sorry about that. I had to check out a couple of things, but I think we're on the right track now. So we parented the hoe to Steve, or the armature at least. So we're going to hit Control Tab and go into pose mode. And as you can see, we actually have Steve. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this here. This is his IK arm controller, if you recall from our animating the character episode. But we're not using this, so we want the hoe to react when we move these bones here. So as you can see, when we parent it to bone, it's going to make it react specifically to the bone that we want. And so we want it to be parented to one of these particular bones. I'm kind of thinking we have this one here for the wrist. If you notice here that we can actually kind of move Steve's wrist, and that kind of seems like the bone that we would want it to be parented to. So we need to identify which bone this is. So what I'm going to do is if I come over here to our tabs, and you may notice that we have these different options here. We have the armature, and then we have this bone one here, and you can see right here that the name of this bone is wrist.r. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to hit Control-C to copy, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit Escape to get out of that view there. And I'm going to go to our hoe. I'm going to click on it. So what I'm going to do is go to this tab here, which is our object tab. And you may notice that the parent is set to steve.arma, which is what we want because this is armature, and it's set to bone, which is for this purpose, this is what we want. We may not want that all the time, but that's what I'm going to go with here. And you notice here it says ikhan.r. And as we saw a moment ago, that's not the bone that we want it parented to. So I'm going to go ahead and click in here, and I'm going to hit Control-V to paste. And that's the wrist.r. And as you can see, Blender comes up with suggestions once you start typing. So if I get rid of this and I start hitting WRI, then you'll see that the wrist comes up and I can go, oh, this one, and I click it. All right, so now that we've gotten that parenting set up, I'm going to go over here and click on our armature, and I'm going to select this bone, which is already selected. And as you can see, our hoe has disappeared, and that is because of the, I think, rotation of the object. If we go down here, you'll see that our hoe is there. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring this up. I'm going to hit G and grab it and bring it around. Let's go to 7, and we're going to bring it over here and go to 1. And let's just go ahead and zoom in there. And there we go. There's our hoe. And everything seems okay. It actually seems like maybe it shrunk. Did it shrink? I feel like it shrunk. We'll see about that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and rotate this on the Z, and we're just going to position it the way we want it to. So I'm going to hit the 3 key, and let's go ahead and bring this over, and we're just going to try to align this with Steve's hand just a bit. Like so. And now when we click on his arm here and we rotate, there it is. We've got the dang old hoe selected and parented to Steve's bones. And I'm pretty sure it did actually rescale that. Now, I don't really know why that happened. It could be due to the rig that we're using or something. I'm not sure, but we should be able actually to just click on the hoe here. And if I can do so, for some reason it won't let me, so let's go ahead and try tabbing into object mode, and there we go, we can select it, and let's just scale it up just a tad. That looks pretty alright with me. We'll have to see. It looks like it could still be a little bit smaller, something like that. We'll just do that and we'll save, and let's go back to our armature. And as you can see there, little bit of wonkiness. It may not be, the same thing for everybody, and we did parent it to a bone specifically, so there may be another way to do it. This is just the way that we're going to go with for now. So the question you may have now is, well, he's going to be carrying that thing the whole time, and you're going to be able to see it. He's not just going to be able to go and do that. Well, so what we want to do is come over here to our outliner, which is this icon here. So it's the outliner, which is technically, if you're coming from Animator, it is the library. And as you can see here, we have the Steve Arma, and that's the armature. And since we parented the hoe to him, then that means it's going to be under this option. So we're going to click that and break it down. And as you can see here, we have the hoe gold.001, which is our duplicated hoe. And there's my taskbar. And you have these options over here, which is the eye icon, the mouse cursor icon, and then the camera icon. And basically what this is it visible? So if I click this on and off, you'll see that the hoe is now gone. If I toggle this one, that means it can no longer be selected in the viewport here. And if this one is toggled, it means that it will no longer render in the final render. At least to my knowledge, that is how it's supposed to work. So what we can do is have that off and actually keyframe it. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle that off. I'm going to hit the I key, and you'll see that now it has a little yellow circle on it. And that means that it is keyframed to not show at this point. Another thing to note is when I move the cursor off of this area, you'll see that that circle turns green, meaning that it is no longer on an active keyframe. So that's a way you can kind of keep up with that. And if you want to avoid confusing yourself, you should be able to do the same thing here with the visibility for the viewport. I'm going to toggle that off, and I'm going to hit the I key, and then now we have no visible hoe in the scene, either in the viewport or in presumably our final render. So what I'm going to do now, instead of actually animating Steve going over to the thing there, what I'm going to do is have him kind of just slide on over. So let's just say maybe right around frame 230 there for whatever reason. We're going to hit G and Y and have Steve come on over here. And I'm going to have his arm kind of come up. So what I'm going to do is go back into our animation screen, and I want to go ahead and select all these bones here, and we're going to scroll over here. And what I'm going to do now is just we could do some more, you know, crazy animation and whatnot, but for this particular purpose, we're going to just keyframe his arm. So I'm going to select this bone, no, not that one. So this bone and this bone and this bone. I'm going to hit the I key, and I'm going to hit just lock rot for location rotation. And then we're going to move up a few frames, let's just say for about 7 frames maybe. And I'm just going to go ahead and have this rotate up. Let's go ahead and rotate on the X, and then we'll come overhead so we can see a little bit better. I'm going to rotate on the Z and just kind of have him reach over and grab that. All right, so when that happens, this is where we want the other hoe to come into view. So what I'm going to do is come back over here to our outliner. I'm going to scroll down and go to the Steve armature, and then I'm going to find our hoe. And at this point, this is the point in time we may want to bring our hoe back into focus. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and toggle the visibility on, and I'm going to toggle the render on. And as you can see, it's not set up the way we want it to be. So what I'm going to do is actually do a little trick here. We're going to go to a further frame up. Let's just say 250. And I'm going to hit I to create a keyframe. And we're just going to hit rotation. And, or actually let's undo that. We may want to go to rotation and scale here. So I'm going to do that in case we need to scale it up. It looks like I kind of eyeballed that pretty well, but, just in case. So this is going to be the final position that we wanted to be in. So that's why I went ahead. And I'm going to come back here to where we had it become visible again, which I believe was right about there. And I'm just going to try to line it up. I'm going to rotate on the Z, something like so. And then rotate downwards. And let's just try to line it up just a little bit better there. Rotate on the Z. And it may not be 100%. Once again, if you're doing this on your own, hopefully this will give you kind of the idea of how to do these things, and you can do things a little bit better for yourself. But as you can see, we've kind of got those lined up just a tad. And what we'd want to do then at this point is select our other hoe. The one that's just in the thing here naturally, which should be on our outliner here selected. There we go. And we want to go ahead and toggle this one to be on or off. So I'm going to go ahead and have this toggled off, and I'm going to hit I to create a keyframe. And then we're going to go back 1 frame and toggle that on. So basically what will happen at that point is this one becomes invisible and the other one that's in his hand will become visible. And we also probably want to have this one toggled for the viewport. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to go up 1 more, and I'm going to hit I to toggle that as off. So as you can see, what we get here is he comes up and boop, he has it in his hand. And of course, since I didn't make this one a location rotation scale, we had to move the location. So for this one, we're going to go ahead and hit the I key and give it a location rotation scale just all together and have it move back into his hand. Now remember, this is not going to look very good, but this should hopefully be what we want it to be, more or less. And we're going to hit Control Tab to go back into this mode, and we're just going to hit Alt R to go back to this. And maybe we'll have this kind of state rotated like that, and we'll see what that looks like. Alright guys, so we're back in the default view so we can see a little bit better, and I've got the Shift F option enabled on our viewport so we can kind of guide the camera around as the animation plays, hopefully. So let's see what we get here when we play the animation. So I'm going to hit Alt A to play, and then I'm going to hit Shift F to give us the view that we want. He flings the door open, he slides over, and he grabs the dang old hoe. Just like so. Just like that, man. He flips the door open. He comes over here. Let's see if we can get a better view of this here. And as you can see, the animation is actually looping the whole time. So let's just get a kind of a stationary view here. See, he comes out, he comes over, and he grabs the hoe. So that looks pretty bad. It is nowhere near a good animation. But those are the technicalities of how you can have Steve kind of interact with objects and things. Whoa, what did I do? I have done something very dire indeed. Okay, I don't know what I hit there. I think I accidentally scaled him. Anyway, but those are the basics of how you can have Steve interact with objects. That's how you can open the door and have him come over and pick up a tool and stuff like that. So I hope this tutorial was helpful. Sorry for the clunkiness as usual. As you know, if you watched the first part, then you're aware that, you know, I'm kind of not familiar with Blender. I haven't used it a whole lot over the years, and I'm trying to get my footing. So I apologize for the clunkiness once again, but hopefully this tutorial was still helpful to you in some way. If it was, feel free to hit that like button. Comment, let me know what you think. Give me suggestions for future tutorials or anything I could have done differently or better for this one. We're all here to learn, including myself. So that's it, guys. If you like this video, feel free to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe to become a citizen today and support the channel. If you want to support it more directly, feel free to check out the Patreon link in the description. Otherwise, thanks for joining me, and I will see you in the next video.